I just want to start this podcast by reading something. And it's Matthew 25:31 to 44. When the Son of Man comes in glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit in his glorious throne. Before him will be gathered all the nations, and he will separate them one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep and the goats, and he will place the sheep on his right hand and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, "Come, O blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then the righteous will answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed thee, or thirsty and give thee drink? And when did we see thee a stranger and welcome thee, or naked and clothe thee? And when did we see thee sick or in prison and visit thee?" And the king will answer, "Truly I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of my brethren, you did it to me." Then he will say to those on his left hand, "Depart from me, you cursed, into eternal fire prepared for the devils and the angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not clothe me. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me." Then they will also answer, "Lord, when did we see thee hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister thee?" Then he will answer them, "Truly I say to you, as you did it not to one of the least of these, you did it not to me." And they will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. Matthew 24:31 to 44. Why am I bringing up this passage? I wanted to tie in something that is kind of been drawing me for many years, really since I was a teenager. When I entered the seminary, we took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. And if people will remember Legionaries of Christ at the time, trying to explain what poverty is. And many times we'll say, well, okay, poverty isn't misery. And it's about being detached from the things of, being detached from material things. And in most cases, we did live the vow of poverty. But even though poverty isn't misery in the religious life, or shouldn't be, there's a lot of people living in deep misery, deep misery. And, as I've traveled around the world, lived in Mexico, traveled around Africa, I remember the first thing arriving to Africa many years ago was seeing signs advertising funerals for young people. And multiple, like driving along the highway in South Africa and seeing signs for funerals for young people. And then I realized people are dying of AIDS. And this wasn't 30 years ago. This was pretty recently. And it kind of jarred with me, in the first world, we can, we have the medications to prevent this and so forth. But really, the material needs that they had were pretty stark. And where we are now in the first world, in what is relative comfortable life that we have, there are many people that are desperately poor, spiritually and physically. So there are communities, I know communities, where a priest can't go to say mass if the road floods, because maybe he has a car, say a small car, not a Jeep, a car, and that car simply can't navigate those roads. I know that because I've driven on those roads. You need a 4x4 to go to some locations in Africa. You simply can't get there with a car. I learned that to my own. I learned that once by renting a car and then trying to go to some place and only to find out there's no way I'm getting in there. It simply wasn't going to be possible. And I want to renew the Eucharist, renew faith in the real presence of our Lord. I mean, it's beyond, it's critical, but I want that presence to be renewed in the other as well. And this is a challenge to myself because, many times I've felt this. I cannot reverence Christ in the Eucharist without reverencing Christ in the other person. I simply cannot. I cannot go before God at the end of my life being a hypocrite and speaking about one thing and not speaking about the other. There was times, I remember one time in Mexico, there was this lady shoplifting. And she wasn't shoplifting that much. It was some bit of food. And I stepped in and I said, look, I'll pay for this. And somebody reprimanded me at the time, but you're religious. You don't have money to be using that to pay for that other person. And it kind of really hit me home. I still remember it. I said, okay, but I know it wasn't my money. I was a religious. And so maybe I should have asked permission from my superior at the time to do it. I'm not talking about hundreds of dollars. It was a few pesos. It was an amount, but seemingly that wasn't the done thing for me to do, to step in and to pay for what this lady was shoplifting. But I still remember to this day, and I still think I was right to do it. That was my own feeling. I was going around Mexico in a collar, dressed as a priest. How can even though I wasn't a priest, how can somebody dressed as a Catholic religious not have compassion for those who are suffering? And why am I doing this podcast? Because recently, I happened to be in a situation where Christ clearly asked me to help a priest. He said to me, go and help a specific priest. So I went to him and I started talking to him and I said, do you need something? What do you need? And he started talking to me about different things. I don't really want to talk about him in this video because there's a lot more to it that I'd like to say, and I will say it someday. But he didn't want help from me for various reasons. And I said, look, just to let you know, Christ has asked me to help you for whatever reason. There's something that you need. And he did. He said, well, yes, there is something that I need. And he started to explain a situation of where he was from and the problems of his parish and so forth. And, he's a priest that doesn't get a wage and he has to, move around. Maybe he has to apply to Church in Need or Kirkenot for funding for different things and so on forth. He doesn't have an easy life as a priest. And I said to him, I will do whatever you need. And I said to him, just know whatever you prayed for something and Christ is giving it to you. I was giving him something that somebody had given me. Because, once you enter into the dialogue with Christ and you're living in his grace and you're living in doing his will, Christ asks things from you. And he asks you to embrace his mission. So, I'm not asking anybody for money because even though, I'm a Catholic blogger, this is a Catholic channel, I don't have permission from any bishop or priest or any canonical permission to ever ask you for money. And to be honest, when I was a Legionary of Christ, we did a lot of fundraising and sadly the money wasn't used for what it was intended for. We have the sad saga of what Father Marcial did, pushing on a front that we were doing one thing while some of the money that was raised wasn't used for what it was intended for. And that hurt people, that hurt the church. So I'm not going, I kind of stepped away and I don't want to ask you for money. But that doesn't mean you don't have a mission to help the church.
We need to help the church. We need to help those who are suffering. We cannot be blind to the presence of Christ in the other person. And you cannot reverence the Eucharist and not reverence Christ in the other person. It's simply not possible. I know, I don't know how I could present myself before Christ at the end of my life saying, oh, I went to adoration and I went to traditional Latin Mass and I reverenced the Eucharist and I worked on the Eucharist and I didn't reverence you in the other person, especially those that are in need. You know, I mean, people that need something. And it doesn't take much to change our habits. I don't need your money, but I need you to raise the consciousness of trying to help communities that are desperately in need and priests that need help. They simply do. You know, and someday I will speak more on this, but there are priests that need your help and communities that need your help. We cannot just think about it. What could we do on a practical level in this affluent Ireland and in Europe? I know there is poverty here, but really I've seen poverty. I have seen poverty, and I can tell you I haven't seen that level of poverty in Ireland. There is lots of poverty here, the spiritual poverty. You have a lot of drug problems, but the poverty I have seen, you know, people wasting away, it would shock you. 10 to 15% of all the food we produce in Europe, 10 to 15% of all the food we produce in Europe goes to landfill, goes to waste. You know, our supply chains, you know, this, you know, just simply that fact alone, just being careful what we buy would free up some resources that we could use, financial or otherwise, to help people that are less fortunate. And so there are small things that we can do, you know. And I suppose where I'm thinking about this, and I was thinking about it a lot, and I don't know if this exists in the Catholic world. It's very, sometimes we forget what we don't see. You know, we don't see the suffering. When you go to places, you see the suffering. You don't see it sometimes. There are many parishes that could help if your parish partnered with a parish that needs help, a growing parish, a missionary parish that needs help. And I'm just wondering, does that exist in the church? If anybody knows, let me know. You know, it'd be good if a parish could receive, you know, a buddy up with another parish, sister parish in another country that's developing, you know, that needs support. And, you know, some limited support could be given to that parish on many levels, maybe education, maybe funding a well, maybe some trying to get healthcare for this parish, funding, making, for example, getting a 4x4 for the priest. I know we don't use 4x4s much in Ireland unless you're working in rural areas, but in Africa, believe me, I can tell you this from experience, there are some places you cannot go without a 4x4. You simply can't get there. And if you can't get to communities, you can't give them the sacraments, you can't grow the church, you can't attend to them. It's a waste. Why ordain a priest when he can't accomplish his mission? So there's these factors, you know, they're important. So, you know, again, I'm not asking you for money. I'm asking you to raise the consciousness of what we could do if we used our resources better, with existing resources. If we use them better, we as Catholics could reverence Christ in the other in a way that would help that community. So I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe this program does exist. Maybe this buddy program does exist, where a parish that's more developed, like here in Ireland, could buddy up with a parish in a developing world and offer them help, resources, training, and so forth on many levels. Now, my sister worked for a time in a school in Malawi, and you know, she used to tell me about the problems they had exporting books, second-hand books, into Africa, and the trouble that they had with customs and so on and forth. This was second-hand books that she would have had donated from, and then it's sad that these things exist, but you know, we just cannot sit back and be blind to the real presence of Christ that is there in places that we can't see. And Christ is asking us to do this, and I call this out because sometimes we can get very hung up in our own world and the way we see things and the way we do things. But in reality, for example, in Ireland, there are many people that spend more money on pet food in a week than many families would have to spend on food for them to live as a family. That's a simple fact. I love pets and so forth, but we can't be oblivious to the needs, and a small amount of help is an enormous amount of help to families in some countries. And I think as I said, I'm not asking you to send me money. I don't have a charity, and I don't have authority or approval in the Catholic Church to ask anybody for money. But I'm asking you to raise awareness. This channel is monetized. The money will be used for that priest, his needs, his parish. I can't go before God making money off this channel. It would be immoral for me. It would go against everything that Christ is telling me. Christ has looked after me all my life and given me everything I needed. So I will do that. It's simply, it's that I can use the means to do that. But you can also you can make the decision to reach out to a parish, to a diocese, in a developing world. Ask them, is there a parish that we can help? Is there specific needs, fund specific projects? Identify with the people that need help. Go there if you can, in a very simple way. It's these people, out of sight, out of mind sometimes. And I think it's important that we bring these people into our sight. And I will do this. I will blog about more this in the coming years. Here I'm not asking you for anything. I'm just trying to raise, awareness that of the need. We cannot renew the Eucharist. We cannot renew our faith in the Eucharist and not have faith in the presence of Christ in the other person that needs us. Anyway, just my thoughts. God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.